Welcome knitters, this is Jana from Purl Together. So this month is all about brioche and this week is no exception. So a lot of our viewers and members of our Facebook and Ravelry groups are finishing up the brioche beanie, where we learned how to do brioche knit, brioche purl, and do that in the round. So next we're going to learn about brioche knitting back and forth, because we're going to do a scarf where we'll also learn how to do increased brioche increases and decreases. So that'll be a lot of fun for everybody. In today's video though, I want to highlight the difference between knitting in the round and knitting flat, back and forth with two colors. So I've knitted a swatch as suggested by the pattern. Now knitting a scarf, you're saying, well, why do I need to knit a swatch? Gauge is not critical. Well, that is true. However, brioche knitting is very different than regular knitting in that it's much more fluffy and springy, and knitting a swatch really does help you figure out what needle and yarn combination produces the fabric that you like, so that it's not too loose and too holey or too dense and difficult to work with. So it really is helpful to have that practice. So here is my swatch for this scarf. Here's my swatch. It's pretty, see, it's very stretchy. The light side, where the lighter color is dominant, the light side is my main color, so that lighter gray is my main color. And then I was using this variegated. Okay, the other point of knitting a swatch is that now I've discovered the denseness of the fabric that this needle and yarn combination produces. And I've also discovered how it will look. Now I really like this side. I don't so much like this side. So for the actual tutorial video for this pattern, I'm going to switch it up, but I wouldn't have known that had I not done the swatch. It also helps me practice a little bit, maybe to learn or to just refresh my memory on the brioche technique for flat back and forth knitting. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to all of my patrons. These people are the ones that support Purl Together financially, and I have rewards that I offer in trade for doing that, just like your local public radio or public TV. So you pledge a few dollars a month and you get some perks. So go check that out at patreon.com/Purl Together. Link down below. All right, let's get started. What I have here is a piece of flat brioche where we're just working back and forth. But the difference between this and working in the round is that you need to go back and forth twice on each side. So when we work brioche in the round, as you learned last week, you go all the way around once with the yarn that is on the knit column. So in my case here, if I were doing this in the round, I would go around one time with the lighter gray, and then I would go around again with the contrasting color. When you work flat, however, you do a similar thing. Each row has to be worked twice. So I'm going to work this first row with the lighter colored, because that's the dominant color on this side is the lighter, and you can tell that by the knit columns. But then I need to follow along with whatever the purl is. So let me show you how that's going to be done. All right, so, and we'll also have a little bit of a refresher in case you need to remember how to do a brioche knit and a brioche purl. Now I do have separate videos for those two brioche stitches as separate videos on the channel on the brioche playlist, and you can find that link down below. But I'll also go relatively slow here and show you. So the first thing I'm going to do on the selvage edge is just knit the first one. Now you can tell here that I'm on the light colored side on the right side. So this is my brioche knit, and you can tell that that's going to be a brioche knit because it has the corresponding yarn over. So this is the yarn I'm holding, match the working yarn that I'm holding in my hand matches what is the dominant knit column on this side. So I'm going to do the brioche knit with its purl, yarn forward, slip the next stitch, brioche knit, which makes the next yarn over here, you see, because we didn't take the yarn to the back like we usually would if we're knitting. Yarn forward, slip. So it's the same mantra that we used last time, which is bark, forward, slip, brioche knit or bark, bring the yarn forward, slip as if to purl. All right, brioche knit, and you can tell that that made a yarn over this purl, and we'll handle that with this color because you can tell the valleys that are the purls belong to this darker contrasting color when I have this side, the right side, facing toward me. Now, if you want to designate, and you should, right and wrong side, particularly if you have colors that are, you know, maybe just a subtle difference, then you want to put a little marker down here somewhere where that designates this is the right side. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and go across on my sample swatch. Now, the pattern that we're about to begin, the brioche scarf that is also linked down below, you'll be able to see that that pattern advises you to do a gauge swatch. Not so much that gauge is that important with a scarf necessarily, but so that you can find the yarn and needle combination that creates the brioche fabric that you like. For example, here, this is Socks That Rock medium or heavyweight, which is almost a light worsted, or it's almost actually worsted weight. But I'm only using size 3 needles because brioche is so loose and fluffy anyway. So you might need to experiment a bit with that and see what works best for you. All right, so after I get over to this side, unlike working in the round, we have to figure out a way. Okay, I can't talk and do this at the same time. I'm going to end with a knit, and then I'm going to bring my yarn forward and slip this last stitch. Okay, now I got to figure out what to do with this contrasting. I have to get this yarn over here also. So this is why straight needles don't work so well for brioche. So you need to slide, if you're using double points, that's fine. Slide everything back to the beginning, and now you're going to handle this. When this side is facing me, I can see that the darker colored yarn is the Purl valleys. I can also tell that I've just worked the gray yarn because the majority of the stitches on this side are yarn overs and gray knits. So now I can tell that this is what still needs to happen. This still is what needs to be worked still. So the reason I'm explaining this all is if you get interrupted, as we all do, or you have to get up and set your work down, when you come back, you can tell what needs to happen. Even if you come back and forget, you can tell that even if you were to look at this wrong side, you can tell that I just worked all of these lighter colors. So you might think, well, I'm ready to work my dominant color on this side, which is the darker green and variegated one, but my working yarn is not where it needs to be for that to happen. So I must have to turn this over and realize that I have just worked the lighter gray because the majority stitches are that yarn. I just worked this. I need to work this one, which means I need to do the purls. Okay, so for this first stitch on the selvage edge, I'm going to go ahead and knit that. Then, what do we normally do when we encounter a knit stitch of the opposite color from what we're holding? We slip it. And with the purl, the brioche purl side, you do your yarn over after you slip, and then do your brioche purl or burp, which means a purl with its corresponding yarn over. So slip, yo, burp. Slip, yo, burp. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way across, slip, yo, burping, all the way across that way. And then I will have completed 2 passes on the right side of the fabric. Because remember, it takes 2 passes of brioche knitting to equal 1 row of regular knitting. So I have to go all the way across in this way to complete the right side row. Now on your pattern that we're about to start the knit along for, the brioche scarf pattern, again the link is down below, it indicates L, S, and DS. This just means light side, dark side. So if you're choosing contrasting colored yarns, you'll have your light side and your dark side. And row 1, right side, wrong side, light side, dark side. So read through that carefully. Be sure to holler. Give me a shout out if you have any questions about any of that. You'll notice I'm ending with a brioche purl, just like normal. Wrap that around just like normal, and then slip that last stitch as indicated in the directions of the gauge portion, the gauge swatch portion of our next pattern for the scarf. And you're going to have both of these yarns forward. On this side, it will be forward when you finish with them, because we're going to turn our work now. Now we have both working yarns where we want them to be to knit both across the quote wrong side, or the side where your contrasting color is knits. So now we know that we have the majority of our stitches were our contrasting color. You always want to lead the process with your light yarn or with the quote main color. So I'm going to do the same thing again here, where I'm going to knit the first selvage edge, Now I know that that's a brioche purl because on the wrong side, my light colored yarn is not the dominant. I need to do the brioche purl. Now you're going to want to hold that contrasting yarn down because it's just hanging out there. So I'm going to slip the next one, wrap around, and do my purl. Remember, you're always slipping the one that is opposite of what you're holding. So slip, yo, burp. Slip, yo, whoops. See, I got stuff a little bit tangled up there, but there's my yarn over with the purl. There we go. Slip, yo, burp. Okay, all the way across with that. So just like knitting in the round, remember how we knit in the round and it takes 2 passes to make 1 row? This is the same thing. It takes 2 passes on the right side and 2 passes on the wrong side. So it's still 2 passes though to make 1 row. Okay, it's 4 passes to make 1 complete sequence if you want to think about it like that. Okay, I'm almost to the end here and I have my slip, a yarn over. Now what's happened here is that I have somehow ended up dropping my yarn over that goes with this purl, and I can see it hanging out right here. It's this horizontal strand, so I need to pick that up, put it back up on the needle, and make sure that I burp. Make sure I brioche purl that with its yarn over, otherwise you'll have a mistake. Okay, and then slip the last stitch, leaving the yarn in front. Now, we can't just turn our work because we have the other one, the other side, the other yarn hanging out back here still. So we have to smash our needle through because we still need to work this other yarn across, don't we? And this is the wrong side, which means the contrasting color is predominant. So this is going to be our brioche knit on the wrong side. So mostly my goal here is to just have you understand how to recognize and how to understand. Do I somehow have a twisted selvage edge? I do. I want you to be able to recognize and understand how to look at your work when you pick it up and come back. All right, so knit that first selvage edge, and then we know we're going to bring our yarn forward, slip the next stitch, and brioche knit. Yarn forward, slip, bark. Forward, slip, bark, forward, slip, bark, and carry on all the way across. All right, I've reached the end of that one, slip the last stitch and turn it over. So by slipping the last stitch, we're just creating a selvage edge is all that looks relatively neat. So that is simply a practice swatch so that I can determine whether this yarn and needle combination is what I want for my scarf. So check out the pattern down below. Just follow the instructions to the letter to knit your practice swatch. Show me what your practice swatch looks like in the groups and holler if you have any questions. And our next video will come out on Friday, where we will actually cast on for our brioche scarf, and we'll also learn increases and decreases to make a pattern on our scarf. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. On page 2 of the pattern, the author indicates that you really should do a gauge swatch for the reasons I just outlined. So if you follow the directions to the T and knit your gauge swatch, I would love to see that. Show me your swatches in the Facebook and Ravelry group. I'd love to see what you've chosen for yarn. As always, let me know the pattern and the yarn you chose, because I'm always interested to see how people's gauges and ways of knitting are different from my own. I think it's educational and it's just super interesting. So show me your photos of what you've chosen to do. And then we will be casting on Friday. Now this scarf also has an I-cord edging, which makes a really neat and tidy and squishy border. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot in the next week or so with the I-cord edging and the brioche knitting back and forth, along with the increases and decreasings. Okay, I'll see you in just a couple of days with my next upload. Look for that on Friday. Thanks for watching.